Turn when they see it fall, then maybe they'll learn. By then it's too late, so just let it burn. They let me burn, they left me for dead. All I had was the voices inside of my head. Tears that I cried, the blood that I shed. I burned every bridge on this road that I led. I let it burn. We let it burn. Thank you. We done finally made it. We shooting our very first episode of Trauma and Triumph. It's been a long time coming. We've been talking about doing it for a while, talking about the hardships and the challenges and barriers that everybody goes through when you talk about anxiety, depression, and all these different things. And putting it to an actual video and for folks to be able to tap into and talk to and talk about, these hard issues. First thing we're talking about today is we're talking about anxiety. And we are talking about anxiety in a sense of what it's like to have anxiety, what exactly is anxiety, and how do you deal with people that have anxiety? Because there are a lot of people in this world who have loved ones who suffer from anxiety, and they may feel like they're doing the right thing and their heart might be in the right place, and they could love this person to the ends of the earth, but they may not be dealing with them and their anxiety in the right way. So I have just a few tools that I know which helps me, and I hope it can help other folks. A couple things I've also researched, and I've talked to many people that have anxiety and that suffer from severe anxiety. And so we're going to get to the bottom of it and see what actually works. But first off, I think it's important to know that anxiety and severe anxiety, it's the most common mental illness in the United States. I think it's believed that over 40 million people suffer from some form of anxiety. And the problem is it's highly treatable depending on what methods you take and how severe your anxiety is. But only about 36% of the people that are diagnosed or have anxiety get treated. That's 36% of 40 million people. And that's for the folks who actually have gotten diagnosed and who know they actually suffer from anxiety. And so now you have these numbers, you have these statistics that show that 40 million people that are diagnosed with anxiety, and less than close to about 15, 16 million people actually get the help, that they need. And so when you think about anxiety, you think about anxiety disorder. Some of the common ways to look at it without having a true in-depth definition. Things that may help you recognize your anxiety. Constant and unsubstantiated worrying that causes significant distress and interferes with daily life. And I'm going to go back over all these with specific examples, just relating to me, and that way it may help somebody else, or somebody else may have a different example. Avoiding social situations for the fear of being judged, embarrassed, or humiliated. That's an important one. We're gonna definitely tap back into that one probably first, just because I feel like that's so common for most of us that deal with anxiety. Seemingly out of the blue panic attacks, those random panic attacks that you have, those anxiety attacks that you have, and you can be in a good space and in a good environment and not even truly understand why you're having them. Irrational fear or avoidance of an object, place, or situation that poses little to no threat. It's kind of like that sense of being paranoid, right? and also reoccurring nightmares and flashbacks or emotional numbing related to a traumatic event that occurred several months or even years before. And when you think about that one, and we'll just move back up, that emotional numbing, that's anxiety. That also ties into depression. And that it gets to this point where you feel like a robot, where you feel like a machine. And those things that you should be emotionally reacting to, you're not. Because for one, you've been through it too many times. You've been through it so many times that it became your normal. And once it became your normal, you just felt like it was okay, like this is what's supposed to happen. And when you talk about personal experience, because lived experience kind of trumps everything in my eyes when you're talking about diagnosing something as well as getting treatment for it. My lived experience with trauma is going through, years and years and years and years of deaths, going through years and years and years of funerals, dealing with different things, even in your household, whether it was parents arguing, whether it was abuse as a child, whether it was seeing these types of things, those all aid to that emotional numbing, and you kind of formulating this thought in your head that everything that you're going through is normal. And so that's when that anxiety kicks in. The idea of avoiding situations for fear of being judged, embarrassed, or humiliated. I remember when I got to a very low point with my anxiety and my depression that I didn't want to leave the house. I had a lack of will to leave the house. I was in the house 4 or 5, 6 days at a time, only to go out to get some necessities and come back and kind of hibernate and bury myself within my home. And it was this idea of this humiliation that everybody knew what I was going through, but not really. They didn't know. Nobody knew what I was going through because I didn't tell anybody. But in my head, everybody knew. And so if I thought that everybody knew that I was down and out, that I was suffering from anxiety, that I was going through hard times within my household, that made me stay inside, that made me feel like the world was against me and I was better off staying inside the house. That's a real thing. Even to the point where I looked around my house and there were so many things everywhere, clothes everywhere, papers everywhere. It was really misorganized and it just wasn't together, and that's another sign of like deep depression and anxiety. Is that especially when you're an organized person, especially when you're used to straightening up and cleaning up and so on and so forth, and you get to this point where it's a mess, right? It's a mess, and that's kind of reflective of kind of what's going on in your head. Like things are everywhere, and that was one thing that I remember when I was at one of my lowest points, and I remember looking around and thinking to myself like, you know what, this ain't it. And so, when you talk about panic attacks are very common for those who suffer from anxiety. I know me personally, my panic attacks look differently and I react differently. Um, and I think it just comes from the severity. I think it comes from the severity of the situation and what you're dealing with at the time. And so there'll be times where I just get worked up. I kind of get hot, even as in body temperature, and I need to take a walk. I need to take a breath. And I think taking a walk and taking a deep breath and trying breathing exercises is what will help almost any panic attack. Um, but I know when I get to that point, I need to walk. I need to take a breath. Sometimes if I feel like I'm under pressure, even it can be unnecessary pressure. It could be pressure that I put myself under. I know panic attacks will come from that. For those of us who are claustrophobic, who sometimes your mind is elsewhere, and you look around and now it feels like a million people in a room. Feel like the walls are closing in, feel like the ceiling coming down. Those are all panic attacks. And I know for me, and when I've talked to a lot of people who suffer from anxiety and suffer from that, breathing, finding those breathing exercises, finding those ways to kind of get out of that attack as fast as you can. Lately, I've been able to kind of snap out of it, within minutes, and allowing myself to breathe, allowing myself to assess the situation and take a walk and say, okay, this is where I start over at. This is, okay, now I get it. And so dealing with anxiety is rough for those who deal with anxiety every day. Um, Anxiety is like a roommate that moves in that you just can't evict. You can't get rid of them. They with you each and every day. Like, and then they always show up at the most inopportune times. That's what anxiety is. um, there really is no getting rid of the anxiety. It's being able to treat and live with the anxiety, and you owning the anxiety and not letting the anxiety own you, which is a lot easier to say than to do. I absolutely know and understand. But finding those ways that help you deal with your anxiety. Anxiety will come in and turn your life upside down. I remember when I first was diagnosed with severe anxiety. I remember thinking to myself, I went through all these years of going through these same feelings I felt, but I never knew what they were. My mother, my father, my grandmother, our family didn't know what they were because there's a stigma put on mental health in the black community and communities of color. And so when you talk about mental health, when you talk about anxiety, depression, or even suicide, there was always this, we're not going to talk about that. Or no, we don't do that. Or, only crazy people, you're not crazy, are you? And of course, we going to say, no, I'm not crazy. And so we just push it to the side and we bury it when you have all these feelings. And now I'm 35 and learning how to deal with anxiety, learning how to deal with depression. And so anxiety will come in your life, turn your life upside down. Have you thinking that the world is against you? Have you thinking that the walls are closing in? Have you thinking a bunch of things that just aren't true? And so that's what this is about. That's what this conversation is about. And when you talk about anxiety in a sense of how you deal with it each and every day, it's very important to talk about how people deal with you. And the people that are dealing with people that have anxiety, it's you could be thinking that you're doing the right thing, by telling them to be tough, by telling them to tell them. One of the worst things you can tell people who are going through anxiety, or not tell people, but you can not listen to them. It's hard. It's hard when you're going through anxiety and somebody finally wants to open up and then you don't listen, right? Because that's all they might need. They might just need somebody to hear them out, somebody to hear them out without judgment, to not make them feel like they losing their mind, to not make them feel like their world is coming to an end. They could just want you to sit there and listen. I tell people all the time when people ask me how should I help somebody that has anxiety, like what are the things that I can do to help somebody who has anxiety, and I tell them the best way to help people is to help them in the way that they need to be helped, not in the way that you feel they should be helped, because your diagnosis might not be right. Right? You can say, oh, they just need to get out the house or they need to do this. They might not need to get out the house. They may need to be exactly where they are and have somebody to talk to because that's what they want. That's what they need at the time. And the more and more they feel comfortable about talking to people, the more and more they feel comfortable about opening up and being open and being vulnerable, that gets them to the point where maybe they're ready to step out the house. Maybe they're ready to go to social gatherings. Maybe they're ready to embark on relationships or situations, because now they feel like they've been able to talk about it and they've been able to get it out. So you always want to have an open ear, even if you don't understand what that person is saying. Even if you don't know what that person is going through, you always want to have an open ear. This is my suggestion. If you're dealing with somebody or know somebody that has anxiety, a severe anxiety, always give them the benefit of the doubt. Always give them the benefit of the doubt. Dealing with anxiety, dealing with somebody who has anxiety and trying to be there for somebody who has anxiety is really hard. It's tough. Don't get me wrong, it is tough. And it will wear on you as well. But imagine going through that anxiety. Imagine being the person that is actually going through that anxiety. And so when you dealing with somebody who has anxiety, you have to give them the benefit of the doubt. One thing we as folks who suffer from anxiety will do, I know me personally, if I'm at my peak, if I'm really going through it, I won't answer the phone. I won't return a text. And then when you talk to whoever it is that sent you that text as a person that suffers from anxiety, the first thing they say is, well, why didn't you answer my text? Why didn't you answer my call? Why didn't you call me? Well, I was having a rough time. I was going through it at the time. I was dealing with anxiety. I wasn't in the right space. And the first thing that you hear sometimes is, well, all you had to do. It's not that easy. It may seem simple enough to pick up the phone and text a person back and say, hey, I'm dealing with something right now. I can't talk to you. But think about it from a standpoint of, I'm going through anxiety right now. I'm dealing with anything that I'm dealing with. I may be having a panic attack. And I text you back something and you don't respond in a way that helps me deal with it, or respond in a way that gets you to understand what I'm dealing with. And then you start a back and forth. And I take it the wrong way. And so I text you back in a manner which you probably didn't mean it. I know I probably didn't mean it, but I misconstrued what you said. Now we got a whole back and forth. And what you don't want to do is you don't want to argue, or you don't want to get into arguments or feel like you badgering somebody who has anxiety, because that could push them to do other things, and they could push them into a whole separate mindset. And it feels almost like an interrogation, right? It feels like their back's against the wall and they got to fight out of it and they got to fight back. And so, it isn't as easy as all you had to do was send me a text. All you had to do was call. All you had to do is any of these things. It's just not that easy. And that's why I say always give, if you can, always give people who suffer from anxiety the benefit of the doubt, because you don't know what they're going through. It might be something heavy. It might be something they're not ready to talk about, and they might not even know how to explain it. One of the worst things about suffering from anxiety is your communication. Your communication in your personal life and the things that you deal with will make it hard to communicate. It will make it hard to talk to reach out, or to answer. And so those simple things we think about as far as communication, sometimes it's just really hard to do. And even if you see somebody that suffers from anxiety and their communication suffers on a personal level, it doesn't mean that their communication suffers on a professional level. Me, I can get out and talk in front of 1 million people. I can give a speech in front of 1 million people. I can get out there and battle rap, or I can debate on the house floor. I could have did any of these things at any given time. But when I went back to my office, when I went back home, when I got back to my hotel room, when I went back to anywhere I was going where I was secluded, then that's where it dawned on me. That's where it settled on me that, all right, now I need to be cut off. Now I need to cut the world off. Now I need to be to myself. And so when you talk about anxiety, you talk about giving folks the benefit of the doubt that suffer from anxiety. One thing I also always tell people is, when somebody's dealing with anxiety, when somebody's having a panic attack or something of that nature, your presence just may help them. Your presence of being there just may help them. A lot of these times, less is more. A lot of people with anxiety, a lot of people that suffer from depression feels like they're not alone. Feels like they are alone. And you telling them that they're not alone might not even be enough. You showing them that they're not alone is one thing. I remember when I was in my deep depression and anxiety, and I was living in my apartment in St. Louis, and my brother would just pop up. He would just pop up. He'd pop up with Popeyes, or he'll pop up with, Pepsi or something. He'd pop up just to be like, all right, I'm here. I'm just here to sit with you for a minute, see what you got going. I need to lay my eyes on you. We sit there. Most of the time, we didn't even talk. Most of the time, we may not even had a conversation. We sat there on the couch and watched TV, watched a movie, watched battle rap, whatever it was, whatever I was doing at the time. He just made me feel like he actually gave a damn about what I was going through, what I was doing, and what was it going to take in order to help me get through it. And so a lot of times, like, us just showing up is important. Being able to show up for folks in the present. and just letting them know you there is very important, especially when you're dealing with anxiety. Always take a step back when you're dealing with somebody who suffers from anxiety, and think to yourself, like, am I being the best that I could be for them right now? Like, am I being there in a way that they need me to be there? um, that will always help you gauge, the conversation, where you at, what you need to do, whether you need to push forward or whether you need to take a step back or whether you may need to leave. It's nothing wrong with realizing that you're not the person to help somebody with their anxiety. I think the misnomer is, all right, because I'm close to this person or because I love this person, then I'm gonna say and I'm gonna do and I'm gonna be there, and that may be working, that may be counterproductive to what's going on. You might not be the messenger, and that's okay. That's okay, because you thinking that you're the messenger and delivering the wrong message is worse. And so it's okay to take a step back if you're not that person. I tell people all the time, friends that I've had, and I've had friends that I'm not friends with no more because of my anxiety. Because they didn't know how to deal with it. And even with me trying to help them get to a point where I say, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. This is how you could help me deal with it. They weren't willing to do that. And that's fine too. That's fine too. Having anxiety, having depression, suffering from these things, it's a long road. It's a long road. And I haven't been on the road as long as many others that I know and that I've talked to and that I've researched. But I know for me, in this short period of time, it's been rough. It's been rough, and it's only been a couple years since I've been diagnosed for what I was dealing with, and only a past year, really, almost a year of me getting to the point where I can find the things that helps me, and I can talk to those people who suffer from it to get those remedies, and then tell more people. I think for me, what helps me is helping other people, and I've read up and researched that doing for others and helping others helps you deal with your anxiety. And sometimes we're not in the space to, and that's fine. But when we're in the space too, I know one thing that helps me deal with my depression and anxiety is helping others, and I think that's why I go so hard to help others. And I've seen other people that deal with severe anxiety go really, really hard, and I always wonder, like, what? Okay, I get it now. What gave them that energy to make them want to do that? What gave them that energy to make them want to go help other people? And I now realize that helping others is what helped them. They always talk about, I wrote a poem called The Broken Fixer, and talked about in the poem, who saves Superman, like, who fixes the broken fixer, right? The person who's fixing every day and fighting every day, and when they come home broken. And I realized, like, in a lot of those times, we fix ourselves, because we fix ourselves by continuing to be the broken fixer. By continuing to get out there and help the others. That's what piece by piece patches us together. So piece by piece keeps us going. If we're not able to help those others, and then we just broken, then we just broken. And that's kind of where our reconciliation come in at. And so, really thinking about anxiety in this sense of, with me, it's about getting this message out and letting people know, look, you're not the only one dealing with anxiety. It's many of us dealing with it, and it's a lot of us dealing with it in many different ways, but yours is unique to you. Yours is unique to you. The way you deal with your anxiety is very important. And letting people know that you're there for them, but showing them more than letting them know. Showing them more than letting them know. When you talk about some of the things that help with anxiety, working out. When I started exercising, when I started working out, that was one of the best things that I could do. It gave me this new boost of energy. It made me feel good. I felt like I looked good. It was top to bottom. It was in and out. And so being able to see the transformation as well as feel it as you're working out, and having this whole new energy, and then that makes you want to do different things, and that makes you want to be more active. It just gets you going. And it puts that anxiety to rest. It's like that anxiety is that bad workout friend that once you get going and you amped up and you ready, you got your gym routine, And you're like, all right, I'm going 2 times a day, 5 times a week. And anxiety is that gym friend that's like, nah, we just eat chips and popcorn. Let's go to the movies. Let's chill. And no, that's why exercising is one of the remedies for it. Because once you get going, like that anxiety, it becomes less and less. A lot of times, and that's just one of the things that help. Jogging, taking a walk. And when I say working out, I don't mean working out and exercising, as if you're about to be in a bodybuilding contest. Whatever makes you comfortable, whatever pushes you to your personal limit, without going overboard. That's what I'm talking about. You don't have to live up to anybody else's standards. You don't have to live up to anybody else's expectations either. Just finding what makes you move and what makes you, go as far as, when you're talking about anxiety. Um, Breathing exercise. I underestimated breathing and meditation so hard because I'm from the hood. We don't talk about breathing and meditation, you know. Um, but once I realized and once I started getting those, I started putting it out there like, hey, I'm dealing with anxiety. I got diagnosed with severe anxiety. I'm not. How do y'all deal with it? What's some things that help you all? And one of the main things I always got was breathe, breathe, meditate, yoga, all these different things. Meditation is so calm and it puts your mind at ease, it puts your body at ease, it gives you a different type of peace, gives you a whole different energy. You're able to remove yourself from any situation with meditation. I remember the first time I meditated, like I got nervous. I was like, in my mind, I'm in a whole different space. I'm in a whole different space. I'm in a whole different, I don't know what's going on. I feel different. I feel differently than I did before I started meditating. And I come to find out that, regular meditation is one thing that a lot of people that deal with anxiety, is something that really helps them through it. And so when you talk about meditation and when you talk about breathing exercises and when you talk about just common breathing, I think it's very important to realize that it may seem, regular, or it may seem like, oh, that's easy to think about. Like these are things we often don't think about. And I do want to take a pause to kind of talk about the pandemic that's going on right now. Those of us who suffer from anxiety, it's really it's probably been rough for you. I know it's been rough for me. With me dealing with anxiety, with me being a busybody, with me knowing that the thing that keeps me going is my busyness and my ability to travel and my ability to do these different things. I definitely had to get to a point where I took a step back. And what I did is I journaled. I got a journal and I wrote down what would help me. What are things that I could do that would help me while this pandemic is going on? What are the things that I like to do? I like listening to music. I like singing. I like writing a lot. I like journaling. I like exercising. And so what I've been able to do is create basically an everyday routine around the things that I love and like to do, to keep my mind away from being locked basically inside of a house or being locked inside a particular community. I journal and I put down all those things that I could just do around the house or that I like to do regularly, that I could do in respects to the pandemic and to the social distancing and so on and so forth. Here where I live at, it's a shutdown. It's shut down kind of like everywhere else for the most part, except for the essentials. But one thing that we can do is go to the park, take a walk to the park, walk around the park if you have one near you, exercise. And so that's how I've been able to deal with the outbreak. I've been able to take the things that I like to do normally, things that I can do, and even tapping into things that I forgot I knew how to do. I've been cooking a whole lot. I've cooked a lot since we've been stuck in the house, and realizing that, hey, not only can I cook, not only do I like cooking, it's therapeutic as well. So imagine you being a person that likes to cook, that loves music, that likes to sing. I mean, that's a triple threat right there. Now you in the kitchen, cooking, listening to all your old school tunes, listening to all your old songs, and singing at the top of your lungs, on key or off key, But you would be surprised at how much doing those things that you love brings you joy. Like singing, like listening to music. Even if you can't sing, it ain't about being able to sing. It's how music makes you feel. Um, and so those are just some of the simple things. The simple things that I was able to do, and I know a few others were able to do or have been able to do within, um, this pandemic, and really what's going on. Um, Finding ways to connect with your friends via, um, they have all these different social media platforms now. They have all these different video messaging. Finding ways to link with them. Link with those who you can confide in. Link with those who you trust, who kind of have that same, who have the same, goals, and who understands you. Period. Being able to link with them, that's very important. Through text message, through phone call, through Zoom, through FaceTime, through Google Hangouts. It's Marco Polo. It's a million different platforms that you can use, to reach out to folks. And so, all in all, y'all, when we're talking about anxiety, understand that a lot of people suffer from anxiety. A lot of people suffer from anxiety that don't know that they suffer from anxiety, y'all. Being able to kind of identify what they're going through, being able to kind of identify where they are, is very important, because you could be the one to help them through that anxiety. Like I said in the beginning that 40 million people suffer from anxiety. 40 million people, over 40 million people are diagnosed to suffer from anxiety. That's not to say how many folks suffer that are undiagnosed, and only 36% of those people actually get treatment for it. Those are numbers that we really got to pay attention to it. When I first got anxiety, I didn't know. I've been dealing with anxiety, I guess, my whole life. But I think the first time I knew, um, I woke up in my bed, and I had just had nightmares. I had nightmares about all of the deaths I had been through. I had nightmares about the funerals. I had nightmares about all these horrible things. And when I woke up, it was real. To me, it was real. It was like I was just going through all of it. It's like in the last however long that dream was, I had physically relived and went through each and every funeral that I had ever been to. And it was very overwhelming, because I then realized that what I've dealt with trauma wise is not normal. What I've dealt with going through these funerals and seeing so much of it is not normal. And I began to cry. I began to get upset. I didn't know what was going on, and I had to calm down. And I remember, my ex-wife really helping me calm down and saying, you know, you just having a panic attack. Relax and breathe, and then I did all of that, and it helped me. And then for a while I played with it. I'm like, yeah, that was just a one-time thing. I'm tough. I've been through a whole lot. I could deal with that, so on and so forth. Then it smacked me in the face again. Then it kept smacking me in the face, and I realized, something wrong. I need to go do something. And I went. And I went and seen somebody. I went and talked to them, and they said, "Oh yeah, you suffer from severe anxiety." And they gave me a bunch of rundowns. Talked about my depression. Talked about my survivor's guilt. Talked about my PTSD of coming from where I come from and seeing some of the things that I've seen. And so that's how I first knew. I actually had it. I actually suffered from it. Right before I got diagnosed, then I got diagnosed. So what we're gonna do right now, y'all, is we actually gonna open up for a few questions before we close out. I'm glad everybody was able to tune in. I'm glad that this is our first episode. It's amazing. It's only gonna get better and better. And I'm excited. I'm excited about what's going on. So right now, if anybody has a question, I have both my Facebook and Instagram actually up. If anybody has a question about anxiety, dealing with anxiety, my personal, struggle, fight, so on and so forth with anxiety, feel free to ask it. Just type it right in, and I'll answer it in the best way that I can. Thank you for everybody that just joined. Thank you for everybody that's been watching from the beginning. This has been amazing. This has been amazing, and it's been pretty dope to have real conversations about what's going on, and actually have open conversations about anxiety, about mental health, because that's just what we need to do. So yeah, if anybody has a question about anxiety, go ahead and shoot it out. Okay, Miranda, I got you. She said, hey, how do you best support someone with anxiety? And I'm going to give you the simple answer. The best way to support somebody with anxiety is being there for them the way they need you to be there, not the way you feel you need to be there. You may feel that you need to get out the house. They need to get out the house. You may feel like they need to do this or do that, and that may not work for them. A lot of times, if you sit back and just listen to what they're saying, they'll tell you actually what they need. They'll show you what they need, and sometimes that's just comfort. Sometimes that's just your presence. Sometimes that's just somebody to listen to. And when it gets more severe, they'll scream out. Those things will scream out, and it's more so about being able to listen and being in a good space to listen. Yes, Nadita, that's exactly what I was going to get to. You want to meet people where they are. You want to meet people where they are. You want to come to where they are. You want to be able to come and say, hey, okay. It's just like when you talk to, not comparing having anxiety to being a child at all. So let me clear that up. But it's just like when I talk to young people, when I talk to kids, and I want to connect with the kids, I may bend down on one knee to get on their level, right? So they can see me eye to eye, because that's the only way they're going to see me eye to eye is if I actually get eye to eye with them, if I actually kneel down and to where we can see eye to eye. And it's the same way with folks with anxiety. Meet them where they at. Question. Thank you. Congratulations on your first episode. Thank you so much. My question is, how do we erase the stigma of mental health in our community? The way we erase the stigma of mental health in our community, in our minority communities, to be specific, our black communities of color, where that stigma is more prevalent. Those of us who deal with anxiety, who deal with mental health issues, that are willing to talk about it, we have to use our platforms that we have to talk more about it. We have to have these conversations with our family. We got to have these conversations with our friends, with our coworkers. I mean, we got to become the biggest voice and the biggest advocates for mental health in black and brown communities, because there is such a stigma on mental health. And there's a stigma on it as a whole, but particularly it's just more prevalent in our minority communities. So us who go through the different mental health issues, we have to have that microphone. Whether you're religious or not, you'll understand what I'm saying. My grandmother used to say, you'll be the only Bible. Sometimes you'll be the only Bible that somebody reads. Right? So you might be the only person that they encounter that deals with mental health or knows about mental health or has that lived experience of of going through these situations, and you might be the best messenger. You will be the best messenger because your lived experience allows you to be that. So those of us who are able to deal with it, who have dealt with it, we have to be the biggest advocates. Those who are willing to talk about it in a sense where it's not shaming people, more educating. We have to be willing to talk about it. And I'm going to tell you the truth, which I still struggle with. We have to be careful about the language that we use. And I mean, I'm not talking about profanity or nothing like that, because, we all curse, so on and so forth. I'm talking about the language that surrounds mental health, the different vocabulary that we use. We can't call everything crazy. We can't keep saying that. We can't use crazy in that sense, because that it's demeaning, and it also vilifies what crazy is, or what crazy is like, right? It says that, oh, well, it relates that this person says, oh, this is crazy, to mental health, right? And that's just not okay. And I mean, it ain't gonna happen overnight, but it's just something that we can start doing, because I still struggle with it. But I think the best way to get rid of that stigma in our mental health in our community is by having bigger voices, and us being able to advocate for it on all levels, and talking about it in every single realm that we're able to. If you make movies, if you make music, if you do whatever, start inputting those messages in there. Start inputting those hidden messages, those hidden gems in there. I mean, they do it in media all the time, for the stuff we don't need. So how about we do it for those things that can empower and educate us on many different levels. I'm going to take two more questions. Appreciate y'all. And thank you for that. I appreciate you, Quentin. This is our first episode of Trauma and Triumph. And as I told you before, this is going to be the first time that we actually go live. We'll have the edited version, which is a more professional look. It'll be available probably first thing tomorrow through our Patreon channel. That's patreon.com, patreon.com/Trauma Triumph all together. And you'll be able to get exclusive professional content there, all content produced by Jerry Douglas, aka B Magic, all the creative content. And so I'm excited. I'm glad that we getting this first one off, and I'm getting ready for many more. If you have an idea about a subject that we need to do, somebody that you want to see interviewed, something that you want to talk about, it could be about anything. It can be about civic engagement, politics, mental health issues, community issues, entertainment. It could be about anything. This isn't just a one brand type of show. We're going to be able to talk about any and everything, but it will all have substance to it. It will all have meaning to it, and we will all push forward to get answers out of whatever it is we need to get answers out of, but it will always be solution based. It won't be just us talking about the problem and the issues, which we do. It will always be solution based. How can we get here? How can we do this? Never seen it rather than understanding why it's happening. Like we sort of seek to understand. Absolutely. But yeah, if you got ideas for that, email us at Trauma Triumph, traumatriumph@gmail.com, traumatriumph@gmail.com. Email us your ideas. Email us what you think. Hashtag Trauma Triumph. We want to make sure we get that hashtag going when we start dropping the episodes, so more and more folks can kind of tap in and know what's going on. We'll be dropping exclusive clips from this whole entire interview, from this whole entire episode, in order to lead up into it. So with that being said, I thank each and every person who's tapped in with us. This is just the beginning of something amazing, and we are going to use our platform to talk about the trauma and to talk about the triumph, and we're going to all get it done together. And just remember, Our episode today was about anxiety and understanding those who deal with anxiety, and understanding how we deal with anxiety. And I think one of the key things we could take away from is, um, when you're dealing with somebody with anxiety, give them the benefit of the doubt. It's not as easy as doing whatever it is you think it is, to get them in comfort or to get them to comply or do whatever it is you need them to do, or answer the question or answer the phone or so on and so forth. It's not that easy. So saying things like, all you had to do is not helpful in those situations. Telling people that, oh, everybody goes through that. At a time where somebody's dealing with something heavy, it it lessens the impact of what they're going through, and it doesn't give that unique sense to that their issue is important if everybody else is going through it. And also, if you want to be there for somebody who has anxiety, the thing you can do is help them in a way they need to be helped, and not in a way that you feel they need to be helped. Meet them where they at. We out.
Wasting time, no waiting my turn. When they see it fall, then maybe they'll learn. By then it's too late, so just let it burn. They let me burn, they left me for dead. All I had was the voices inside of my head. Tears that I cried, the blood that I shed. I burned every bridge on this road that I